Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Month in Review. This is a series of videos where I talk about all the new to me games I played during the previous month, this one being December 2021, and I rank them from my least favourite to my most favourite. Now I will say some of these games are very kind of preliminary ratings, ones that I've not really locked in that final score of, but at least it'll give you an impression of my initial impressions of the game. I've got 12 games to talk about this month. Some of them not so keen on, some of them very happy with. But before I get into those games, I just want to give a shout out to Kienda.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer in the UK, and I'm very happy to have them sponsoring the channel. So, 12 games this month, a modest amount, not too many, but I'm quite comfortable with this because I don't think it was really sustainable to hit the, 18s or something that I was normally doing in the previous month. But let's get started with number 12. So at number 12, I have Hokkaido. So Hokkaido, I think a game that's had, moderate popularity over the years. This one, I suppose, was one of the pioneers in using this puzzly grid system where each of these cards is divided up into, I believe it's sections of 4, it might be 6 in this example. And all these different sections have different terrains on them, and they all score in different ways. And then in this one, you're drafting those cards and then laying them over each other, trying to score points in different ways. I do like the fact in this one you have this mountain mechanism where whenever you draft a card with a mountain on it, you have to add it to the existing mountain, which essentially kind of cuts the your whole scoring tableau in half, where one side of the table will score the cities and the other side will as well, but only your lowest of the two will score. So it does have this kind of balancing act, and then you score points for your forest and your biggest river and all that kind of standard stuff. And I think standard is probably one of the words that I take away from this one. It doesn't feel like it does anything special, and I will say that I think that whole, again, that kind of cross-hatching mechanism has been improved upon by games such as Circle the Wagons and games such as Agropolis and Sprawlopolis. So I'd rather play those titles than this one. I just think they're a little bit more interesting and a bit more fun to play, whereas this one just feels very vanilla and quite generic. So I didn't dislike it, but I certainly wasn't hooked on it. I wasn't impressed by it. It was just fine. So, probably about a 5 out of 10 for Hokkaido. At number 11, I have Flea Market, which is an older game by Leo Colvini, a designer who I've really kind of been digging into a bit more lately. This one is a very random game, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It certainly is more tailored towards more introductory, family weight gamers. But this one has some interesting things in it, as you are rolling a pair of dice. And then, depending on that value, actually I think it's 3 dice, and depending on the combined value, you are picking up a particular tile matching that and putting it up for auction. So you'll be spending your money to acquire that, and then in future rounds, if that number's rolled again, the person who previously acquired it gets some money and then can potentially get more money if people buy it off you. But I like the fact that, the more commonly rolled numbers are worth more because they're more likely to come out for re-auction and give that owning player more money. So very simple, only takes 15-20 minutes to play, which I think is about right. So at least it doesn't outstay its welcome. I think there's some fun to be had from this. I think maybe the randomness is a little bit too much of a factor, but it's pleasant, it's fine, nothing special, and it's just good at what it does, I suppose. That is Flea Market at number 11. At number 10, I have Kodachi. So Kodachi is kind of a hybrid push your luck and deck building style game with this ninja theme. So the idea is you're trying to overcome all these enemies, and the more you overcome, the more cards you can acquire. You've got currency cards, and then you've got the actual cards you're going to add to your deck. So you need to kind of balance the two, make sure you have enough currency to buy the good cards and add it to your hand, which will let you overcome more enemies easier. So I do quite like the idea of this one. I like that hybrid, and it works quite well in terms of meshing together. I suppose I had a couple of issues with this one, and number one being that a lot of these push your luck style games, everyone is kind of playing from the same, or kind of a level playing field. But this one, you actually have 2 kind of grades of enemies you have to overcome. You've got the more common ones that you can easily overcome, and you've got the really difficult red ones to overcome. And one of the things that really did turn me off this game was the fact that a player could have a really easy run of cards and overcome them with a pretty, nothing special, an average set of cards in their hand. but then the next person could get shafted with a bunch of red cards and just have no options, even if they did have a good hand of cards to start with. So that for me didn't quite feel right, and I'd rather it be pure randomness on the outcome rather than a set deck where one person could benefit from and the other person couldn't. But I did like the fact that no matter what the outcome was, that everybody got to draft a card from the centre to keep all players engaged. It was a very near miss for me, this one. I think it's good, but there are a few problems with it which I will cover in a review, and one of them being the fact that you can be kind of backed into a corner and have no options when there's nothing you can do about it. So that for me just tends to rub me the wrong way. But the rest of the game is fun. The deck building comes through quite well. And I will say that the game does go on a little bit long as well. So, that's normally a bit of a problem for me. But other than that, it's a good game. So I didn't mean it to sound overly negative. That is Kodachi. At number 9, I have Hashi, which is a 2021 release. This is a roll and write style game, or a flip and write style game, as you have this map made up of all these different islands, and then each time you're going to be flipping a card, which is going to show a number on it, which you're going to write on one of the islands, and also a number of bridges, which you're going to be using to connect those islands together. And the idea is you want to be having a number on the islands, or those islands are going to be complete for scoring, once you have a number of bridges equal to that number. So you're going to circle it, and that's going to contribute towards your scoring. However, once it's circled, you can no longer add any more bridges to that particular island, which can kind of cause a domino effect and mess things up for the surrounding islands. So it really does have this constant choke on you as the game goes on. It's getting tighter and tighter and more restrictive, and your options are quickly running out. And I tend to like those kind of games. They kind of make you, or keep you on your toes. This was a very kind of early rating. I've only played this one once. I need to play it a few more times to solidify my rating, but at the moment I like it. Very puzzly, very tight and tense, but decent. I've got a few concerns about the replayability. Once you've played this a few times, is it going to hold up? I have my doubts, but for now it's enjoyable, and it's certainly a different style of flip and write game. That is Hashi. At number 8, I have The Rise of Augustus, or just Augustus, depending on which version you have. This is a bingo style game, as you are drawing tiles out of a bag randomly with all these different kind of Roman symbols on them. You've got your swords and daggers and chariots, all that kind of thing. And everybody is going to have a bunch of cards in front of them with those matching symbols on them. And then you're going to be placing your little meeples on them. And once a card is complete with all those symbols, you're going to score. Or you're going to shout out, I think of this one, you're shouting Ave Caesar, and then you're going to score that card for victory points, but it's also going to give you a kind of benefit, which could be more of these meeples, so you have more flexibility, and it can be endgame scoring combos, and all stuff like that. So that's pretty much the depth of the game. It's basically bingo, but with some set collection and with some other strategies you can go for. Works very smoothly, very simple style game, family friendly. Anybody can play this, really. I will say, I think one of the biggest turn-offs for me in this game is the fact that it's in a big box. So this is a full-size, standard Euro-style box, whereas the gameplay doesn't really warrant that for me. So, shelf space is a premium, and I don't think I can really justify having Augustus taking up a big box space. But the gameplay is fun. It did fall a little bit flatter than I would have liked it to, but it was okay. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I've played it, because it was really a game I wanted to try and see how they were going to tackle and put a spin on that bingo mechanism. But it's good, it's decent, and I can't really say more than that. If you like bingo, you'll probably like Rise of Augustus. At number 7, I have Dragon Master. This is a small box Reiner Knizia 2-player game, as you're building up this grid of cards. I think it's a 4x4 grid, and you're playing these cards down, and you're trying to basically score as much as you can on each of those rows or columns, because one person's going to control the columns, one person's going to control the rows. And only your lowest score out of those 4 columns or 4 rows is going to be your final score. And you're trying to basically put the same numbers of cards down, because if you do, they kind of multiply with each other. But of course, your opponent is trying to sabotage that at the same time and lower your score. Really simple game. It only takes 10 minutes to play. Works well. I don't really know of any Reiner Knudsen games that don't mechanically work well. You know, some are funner than others, and this one for me is a decent one, especially because it is so fast and easy to get to the table. So a really solid two-player only game, and it fits a nice niche. You know, if you do want that 15-minute or less game to get to the table, that's packed up and packed away as well. So yeah, really happy with Dragon Master. At number 6, I have another brand new game out. This is a Game of Thrones Betwixt. So this, of course, is using the A Song of Ice and Fire intellectual property. And this one uses the between two cities or between two castles of Mad King Ludwig mechanism, where you are working with your neighbours. So the person to your left and the person to your right is working with you, and you have a small council of cards shared with that player. So you're basically acquiring all the different characters from the book series, and they all have unique abilities, they all have different point values, and you're acquiring them by basically using a hand of cards, and they'll kind of play with things, they'll have a bidding value, and it's kind of a game where you really have to manage your hand quite carefully, because if you really want a particular character, you might spend all your cards and not leave yourself with much in the next follow-up round. But I really do like the variability of all the different characters. I think this one might be my favourite version of a game using that mechanism. I was kind of lukewarm on those other two titles, whereas this one I like quite a bit. And a big part of that is because of the IP, because I am such a big fan of George R.R. Martin. But nice game. Want to play this one more. Scales well because, again, you're always just working with the person to your left or right and chucking those bids in. But happy with this one, and a game probably better than it has a right to be. So that is a Game of Thrones Betwixt at number 6. At number 5, I have Sweet Landia, which is another 2021 game that pretty much nobody knows about. And I only know about this one because a fan of the show recommended it to me. They know I like auction and bidding style games, and this one is that. So this one, you have a bunch of cards laid out for all the players, which you're going to be bidding on. Everybody's going to have a hand of cards, and those cards are going to have a unique number on them, ranging from, or very low, I think it's 5 or something, all the way up to 30 something. And you're going to be using these cards to gain the cards you want in the middle of the table. So you're going to pick the ones you want. They're going to give you point values. They're going to combo with other cards. Some of them might even have negative values or mess up the tableau, forcing other people to take those cards. And it works pretty well considering you have public objectives and private objectives as well. It has a nice forward momentum as you can keep hold of some cards but have to give some cards away. And it's just a decent, well-rounded auction and set collection game. It doesn't have anything especially unique about it or special about it, but what it does a good job of. So, and it comes in a nice compact little box, and I think it scales pretty well too. So a nice game, one that I think is going to fly under the radar, but a nice production, good clean rules, and some good different strategies as well. And one you have to kind of pivot when you see the cards that come out. So that is Sweet Landia, a nice solid auction style game. At number 4, I have Brussels 1897. So this is the card game version of Brussels 1893, I believe, which is a more kind of expansive Euro game. This one, you almost have like a worker placement style mechanism with this big tableau of cards out there. You've got like pieces of arts, you've got buildings, you've got materials to build buildings, you've got money, and you've got these nobles as well, which will give you unique player powers. And then you've got these kind of other spots as well where you won't use your workers for the money value on them, because whenever you place one of your cards down to claim one of the cards, you have to pay an amount of money. But the other ones you just have to pay an amount of cards to, which will always be available to you. But what I really like about this game is the fact that when you are claiming these cards, not only are you trying to get the resources or buildings, etc., to get points, you are also contributing to the column in which you're putting that card in, which has a kind of boon at the bottom of that column, which we might say climb the noble track, which means you can play more nobles, or you can climb the building track, which makes your buildings worth more, or climb the shield track, because when you place these cards down, they make these little shields when you have a complete set of 4, and that's another way to get points if you have majority. So I like the way that this has worker placement, but kind of area majority game within that worker placement. And I think that is such an unexplored mechanism that just has so much potential. And this one does it pretty well. I think some parts of the game are way stronger than others. I particularly didn't like the way that you constructed the buildings, but I won't go too much into that one because I have already reviewed the game and I will touch on that in more detail. So be sure to check out my review dropping imminently, really. So that is Brussels 1897, a really solid kind of a filler plus style game. It fits that nice hour long, maybe 45 minutes to an hour bracket, but it still has some meaty decisions to be made. So I haven't played the original, but this one is a good kind of substitute for that until I get that main game played. So that is Brussels 1897 at number 4. At number 3, I have Curious Cargo. So this is almost like another filler plus style game. However, this one is strictly for 2 players. And this one is a twist or uses some of the mechanisms used in the Pipeline game, which is a game I haven't tried, but I have heard it's compared to this game quite a lot. And this one, you're trying to build up this network of pipes with these machines in order to basically ship off goods onto these trucks and then get points for doing so. It's very puzzly. A lot of things are always going to be kind of moving you in different directions as you are laying out a foundation of pipes. Then one minute you have to re-divert it by placing new tiles. Very frustrating at times, but can also be very satisfying at times. And again, this one is a bit of a niche game because it is quite thinky. There is a lot to think about, a lot of things to balance and consider, because not only are you trying to kind of outsource your different resources, you're also trying to kind of intake your opponent's resources, because your board kind of attaches onto your opponent's board, so their outgoing goods become your incoming goods, and that is another way to get victory points. I did think this game did get better as it went on. The more you build up your network, you have that foundation to play around with, where at first it feels like you're chasing your tail a bit and not getting anywhere. But again, once you get that network established, it's a lot more fun, it's a lot more dynamic, and I think you need to get in the headspace that nothing in this game is permanent. You have to be willing to move things around and tailor things to your particular needs at that particular time. So you need to be a bit more tactical, I think, than my initial thoughts on the game. But enjoyed it. I think I'm unsold on it, but I'm also think I have got potential to love this one or really enjoy this one, but it also has potential to sink as well, because am I willing to put that much work into a game? Because it does sometimes feel a bit like work, but for a 2-player game it is unique. And so yeah, more plays are going to determine which way this one's going to go. But as for now, I certainly appreciate how different this game is. It's fun, it's refreshing, but again, it feels a little bit laborious at times, and that's going to be, where this game is going to stick for me. Is it going to go up? Can I get past that? More plays will tell. So that is Curious Cargo at number 3. So let's get into the top 2, and these are the only 2 games with my shield of quality. So these are straight up recommendations from me. So at number 2, I have another Leo Calvini game. This is Verbunk. So Verbunk is actually a game that's been out of print for a long, long time. I've been after this one for ages. There was a Kickstarter campaign last year, which was actually sadly unsuccessful, but the company went ahead and printed it anyway with some minor changes. But this one is a bluffing and gambling style game, as you have this big wheel of these different gambling tables, and as the game goes on, I think it's 3 or 4 rounds, these tables are going to start acquiring money, and as the game goes on, more and more money is going to start building up on these tables, and then you're going to be moving your player piece and trying hopefully to collect those different piles of money. But before doing that, you're going to play 3 cards from your hand. One of those cards is going to double the value of that table. One of them is going to be a pure bluff, so it's not going to do anything, but it could potentially be one of the other 2 cards. And the other one is a trap. And that trap card is going to mean that if somebody lands on that particular spot with that trap card on it, then you are going to take that money instead of that player. So you really need to know how to use those cards. Are you going to lure people into that trap? Are you going to put your bluffing card on the higher valued spots and hopefully your opponent think it's a trap and can guide them somewhere else? So that bluffing part of the game really does shine through, has some real kind of loud cheering moments when it pays off for you, and I just love the forward momentum and the pure tenseness of this game, because yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had, and you have to play the spatial element of the game quite carefully as well, because you can only ever move up to 4 tables in front of you. So yeah, really good fun, and definitely lived up to the hype for me for this one. I tend to really like these lightweight gambling style games, and this one is probably one of the best examples of that. So Verbunk, a big hit for me, and definitely accessible to non-gamers and very casual gamers as well. So love this one. That is Verbunk at number 2. And finally, at number 1, the best game I've played this month is Progress, the Evolution of Technology. So this is a card-driven tech tree civilization style game, as you are going through the annals of time, building up technology and trying to, be more advanced than your opponents and get points by building these cards. But I love the hand management system in this game. I like this degree of engine building in the game, as you have your personal player board, and that's going to get better as the game goes on, which is going to let you hold more cards in your hand, or let you develop more technologies at once, or let you kind of draw more cards at once, which are all massively important to have. But also, I love the actual way you build these cards in the first place, as some of these cards might have a certain amount of requirements on them. They might say, have this many culture points, have this much engineering points, have this much science points, or stuff like that. But you can acquire these permanent tokens, which you can use round after round after round, or you can sacrifice other cards in order to build them in the first place, and some of them are just straight, clean prerequisites for other cards. So some might say maybe the Iron Age card you can play it for free if you've already built the Bronze Age card, for example, which can be such a more efficient way of building those cards, rather than having to spend and sacrifice all those other cards in order to do so. So I really do like that. It has real kind of satisfying tech trees as you're playing things out, watching your civilization develop, and it's just really fun to play, remarkably smooth, one that doesn't really get talked about anymore. I think this was quite an early Kickstarter game, but it still stands up remarkably well, and I think this is actually published by NSKN, who are modern day Board and Dice, so very popular company, very successful publisher, and this game, if it was released today, I still think it would do pretty damn well. So definitely one of the best civilization and tech tree style games I've ever played, and I'm really looking forward to playing it again, to be honest. So really pleasant surprise, and one if you like your card driven, more kind of thinky style games, with a lot of manipulation, a lot of kind of adjusting your hand, going through discard piles and stuff. This one is certainly one to cast your eye upon, because it's very good. That is Progress, the Evolution of Technology, the best game I played this month. So that concludes the video really. So if you have enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too, and also be sure to check out kienda.co.uk, and for everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.